All right, welcome to Chapter 4. Chapter 4 is about discovering cells. First, we're going to look at what cells are. Cells are your basic units of structure. So organisms are either multicellular or single cellular, and all their structures, everything that they're built out of, are built out of cells. So cells are your smallest pieces to the structure. They are also going to provide the function for living things. So anything that your body has to carry out, processes, things like that, cells are going to be responsible for. Cell structure and function. Again, structure refers to how they are arranged. So you have multicellular, single cellular. It's also going to go into whatever physical properties your organism tends to have. For example, the bark of a tree is hard and rough. That's going to be contributed by the cells there, producing a cell wall that is both hard and rough. Function refers to the processes that enable these cells to stay alive and reproduce. The size of your cells, most cannot be seen by the naked eye. If you look at our little graphic down here, you can see these cells here. You get a good picture of with a light microscope. But up here we have the naked eye. So we do have our egg cells up here. Those are the largest cells that we currently know of. This is one ostrich egg would be considered one cell. As you get smaller, you will need microscopes to see them, and because of this reason, cells were not really discovered until the late 1600s when scientists started using microscopes to look at pretty much anything around them. Our first observations came from these 5 people here. They are all going to contribute a piece to cell theory, and cell theory is going to be wrapped up in the last slide of this video. So microscopes made it possible for these 5 gentlemen to do their research. Our first person is Robert Hooke. Robert Hooke is an English scientist and inventor, very influential for the time period, and he did a lot more work than besides just discovering cells. But what he did was he took his own microscope, which he made himself, and a lot of people at the time period would say that his microscope was probably the best out there. He observed slices of cork from a cork tree, which is part of a living thing and therefore, like all living things, made up of cells. And he described them as being small rooms, very similar to a cell, like a prison cell. It would have a small room, and that's where the name cell comes from. So Robert Hooke was our first to discover cells and give them their name. Our next scientist you should be familiar with, and that's Leeuwenhoek. Leeuwenhoek is contributed to the discovery of bacteria cells. So he scraped his tooth, found single-cell organisms living in it, and the stuff there, and we are later going to call these organisms bacteria. You should be pretty familiar with what he did by now. Next is Matthias Schleiden. Schleiden is a German botanist. Botanists study plants, and he's going to come up with the idea that all plants are going to be made of cells. So Robert Hooke discovered cells. Anton Van Leeuwenhoek discovered bacteria cells. Matthias Schleiden is going to do plant cells. Theodor Schwann is going to be contributed to animal cells. So here's another German physiologist. I'm going to say that all animals are made of cells. You have Rudolf Virchow, who is going to further reject this idea of spontaneous generation. If you recall, that is the idea that living things arise from non-living matter. Virchow is going to reject that, and he's going to state that any cells that we have today had to come from an already existing cell. Putting all these 5 gentlemen together, you're going to get cell theory. Cell theory is going to state 3 main purposes, or 3 main points. One, it's going to say that all living things are made of cells. It's going to say that cells are the basic unit of structure and function in living things. And it's going to say that cells are produced from other cells. And that's going to conclude section 1.